Ben Larson, joined by a new addition to CheeseheadTalk.com. We're so excited. Justin Hall is with us from 95.3 WSCO in Appleton. How's it going, Justin?
It's going good. How you doing, Ben?
Good. I know it's a little early for you. You usually have the show in the afternoon from 2 to 5, and so we've got some things to talk about today. I'm sure you'll be talking about as well up on the air in Appleton, but wanted to start with just what's fresh on sports fans' minds, of course, and that's the national championship game, which took place last night, which probably was, and I'm not a connoisseur of national championship games over the last number of years, but I was thoroughly entertained basically from start to finish on this thing. It was pretty well done, I thought, and despite the only thing it really lacked was a down-to-the-wire finish, an absolute down-to-the-wire finish, but really entertaining basketball. Surprising. I don't think a lot of people would have thought Michigan, as the season played out, would have given us this kind of result, but yeah, they did, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
I'm kicking myself for this one, Ben. I go back to late January, early February, and I flat out said I think Michigan's the team to beat. I think Michigan, out of the Big Ten schools, is the one that can make a deep run. Then, of course, February happened. We saw what happened there,
yeah.
the Big Ten tournament going up against Wisconsin and looking terrible in that game, and I ended up having them go out in the Elite Eight to Florida, which kind of kicking myself in that one because I might have won a few pools if that was the case. But you look at the championship games. I mean, last year Kentucky, Kansas, it wasn't really a game. Never really had a flow to it. The two Butler games, the Butler Duke game was a pretty good one a few years back. Butler had that charge to come back. The Butler Connecticut game was about as bad of a game as I think you've seen in the championship. But Michigan hung around the whole time, and they had the lead in the first half. And Louisville made some separation, never really went and ran and hide. So you're right. It was an absolute thrilling national championship game. I'm like you. I'm not a real big fan of the championship game, but that one kept you entertained. Michigan did enough down the stretch to make it look like, okay, can they make a run? Can they pull this close? But, we're never able to do that in the end.
Yeah, and I gained a new respect, I think, for John Beilein, the Michigan coach, because I always thought he was a class act, but could never get his team quite over the hump. And then, you see in that game, and not only before and after, but the way he handles things. I think you can tell a lot about a coach by the way he handles a halftime interview, because I know those things are terrible, and a lot of people call for them to be done away with, but they're never going to be done away with because you get Bo Ryan, being kind of snarky in the Big Ten tournament. You get guys like whether it's Calhoun or our favorite these days, Jim Boeheim, whether it's post or halftime interview, just berating people, and that's good television. It goes viral instantly, so they're never going to get rid of it, even though I don't know how much it always adds to the game. But even John Beilein, he takes a softball question that he could really stick and just run to the locker room, and he, kind of answers it for the reporter, and he's a real class act about things. He's, suddenly now, I know it's one tournament run, but suddenly, Michigan, good young team, they'll probably lose Trey Burke. But you look at the Big Ten, and, I want to talk about this a little bit, from a local perspective, I just from a Wisconsin perspective, what do we see for the Big Ten next year? I'm thinking, from a Badger perspective, can they finish in the top four again? Because that seems to be their mark. But Michigan, Indiana, Ohio State, they should all be there again. And it, hopefully what we'll find is a Big Ten conference that continues to be competitive.
I want to go back to Beilein 1 second here, and it's going to sound like I'm taking a shot at Bo Ryan because I probably am. But Beilein, he was known for his zone. That's what he did. That was, what he did at West Virginia that made him successful. But I'll tell you what makes Beilein a great coach in my eyes, and I'm using the word great, it was his adaptability this year. I mean, you got a guy like Trey Burke. You have the athleticism of Hardaway Jr., of Glenn Robinson III. I mean, McGrary really came on there. Stauskas, the off guard. I'm probably hacking names, but whatever. I mean, you got those guys, but he showed a willingness to adapt his coaching style to that game, where I think what you have sometimes with some coaches, and I think this is one of the biggest faults of Bo Ryan, is you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and that's why he fails to get the big-time recruits. That's why he does it. It's his system. It's his way. These guys are going to adapt to what he's going to do, and I think Beilein's biggest attribute this year with that team specifically was, his willingness to adapt. Now, with that being said, Michigan's losing a lot. Burke's going to be a lottery pick. I've seen some mocks, Hardaway, Robinson, they're lottery picks, so you never know what their plans are going to be. Kraft, Thomas as well at Ohio State, they're probably as good as gone. So how much turnover is there going to be? And that's, I think, why Wisconsin continues to fit there in the top 5. But I don't see anybody coming out of nowhere, Ben. I think it's going to be the same characters. I think Tom Crean's got a good thing going at Indiana. Thad Matta at Ohio State. Tom Izzo, you can never cut him out. We'll see how Beeline recovers and if they can build on this momentum too. I think Michigan could be the one wild card because they're probably losing the most. But Wisconsin will be Wisconsin. They'll be good in the regular season, and by second weekend of the tournament, you'll be cheering for somebody else.
I know. That's the thing. Reed and I have talked about this a lot too, not only recently, but over the years. I've made the decision consciously recently, just watching how the tournament played out to lower my standards for the Badgers and just treat like a Big Ten championship like it's a national championship. Because I just, you look at that game last night. Could you ever picture Wisconsin playing that game at all, or staying with those teams? You look
they beat Michigan twice, Ben.
That's what I'm saying. They beat Michigan twice. One of those games, and I know one of them was in the Big Ten tournament. But that's what you want to have hope. There might be a lot in Badger Nation saying, hey, we beat Michigan twice, and look, they played for the national championship. But then look what happens when they flip the lights on, when you play in the NCAA tournament. It's not that Wisconsin hasn't done anything, because they have. And this year, Assad was not, we were wondering at the beginning of the year if Wisconsin would even get there. So they did accomplish a lot this year. But it seems like every year you go into the tournament, you get beat by better athletes, and it's a broken record. And maybe we should just learn to take a lot of pride in regular season success, because it certainly has been really good, at Wisconsin under Bo Ryan. And I don't think you just brush that under the rug. Unfortunately, in the world of college basketball, it's not what you're judged by ultimately, I guess, unless you're trying to be local and spin things positively. Bo's not going to lose his job anytime soon. But that's that's why I guess I'm saying I've just decided to lower my standards and really celebrate the regular season victories.
And that's
probably in the tournament.
Yeah, that's probably what you have to do with Bo Ryan, because that's what it's going to be. And his style of play, his teams, how fundamentally sound they are. They can go out there and they can beat a Michigan in a one-game situation. They can beat an Indiana in a one-game situation. But as you saw in the Big Ten tournament, the NCAA tournament's about stringing 6 games together. Louisville strung 16 straight together. Michigan's strung 5 straight games together. I don't know if Wisconsin could do that against top-level opponents. You can do it in the Big Ten, because sprinkled in, you're going to get a Nebraska, you're going to get a Penn State, you're going to get another Girl Scout Troop 1546. But in the NCAA tournament, the further you go, the better the teams are going to be. So, Wisconsin can go out there. They can make the Sweet 16, make the Elite 8. I just don't know if they're going to have the ponies that can go win 6 games in a row when you're going to be eventually going up against a hot Louisville or a hot Michigan team, kind of like you saw last night.
You want to be encouraged by, Vito Brown from Ohio or Ansa Brunson Koenig. I don't know if you've seen him play from lacrosse yet. I actually went to the state tournament to check him out, and he looks, obviously like a player. And Sam Decker is undoubtedly a player who, will work this offseason, as he's pledged, probably to get a little better defensively and then be on the floor for 40 minutes. And so they have talent, maybe more so than in recent years even, influxing into the program here. But still, the question is, can you actually make that run? It seems to me, your point, Justin, about, how teams make a deep run, you have to string together the 6 games is true. What's also true is talent. The cream of the talent rises to the top in the NCAA tournament. Even Wichita State appeared to have a lot of talent and maybe was a hugely talented team, even though they were a 9 seed. And those are the teams that eventually make the plays to win. And in the regular season, these players seem to not, have the sense, whether it be just the grind of a Big Ten season, playing at the Kohl Center, on the tough road, floor if you're coming into Wisconsin, or just, not being there every game as much as you're going to be in that tournament where the stars don't always show up the way they can in the tournament. You saw with Michigan with the player of the year, the good freshman in Louisville, just, a solid all-around good team, and they're going to send some players to the NBA. You have to have guys that are going to get drafted on your roster to win a national championship. As a rule. I'm sure there are some exceptions, but as a rule, that appears to be the case. And so you look back at Wisconsin, and it's not necessarily about the style, the plotting style that Bo Ryan so hates to talk about, but maybe it's about, actually being able to recruit some talent. And can they? I don't know. It's not. I guess if Marquette can, I'm thinking Wisconsin can, right? And maybe it's just a situation where you have to get a different style at some point.
You brought up the NBA thing, and I think look no further than guys like Vander Blue. Guys that don't want to go to Wisconsin because I think they have bigger aspirations. And not that Wisconsin can't recruit talent, because I mean you brought up Bronson Koenig. I was about as impressed with a player as I ever have been. I had an opportunity to call the Little Chute Aquinas game down there. We cover Little Chute here in the Valley, and I'm sitting there, my jaw's hitting the table watching some of the plays that Koenig is making, but. What is Bo Ryan going to do to allow him to go there? I mean, you have Ben Bruss. You got Josh Gossard coming back next year at the guard position. Trayvon Jackson, George Marshall. Is Bronson Koenig going to be able to develop within the system? There's where Bo Ryan's unwillingness to let freshmen go out there and work through their problems kind of hurts them with maybe getting a Diamond Stone. They weren't in on Luke Fisher. They kind of busted with Evan Anderson so far. So the talent thing, if Diamond Stone wants to come to Wisconsin, the number one player in the entire country in the sophomore now to be junior class, Bo Ryan's not going to say, no, you don't fit in our style. Of course he's going to take him in. But is he going to allow him to develop in that system? And I think that's where the talent thing goes awry. And you brought up NBA talent. And, if you're a kid growing up in Wisconsin, if you're a Badger fan, great, you're going to get it. But you're out of Chicago and you're being recruited by Buzz Williams, you're being recruited by Bo Ryan. Bo Ryan goes in there with the name of Devin Harris. Buzz Williams goes in there with the name of Jimmy Butler and, Wes Matthews. And Dwayne Wade,
Dwayne Wade,
a little bit more firepower too. So I think that's the biggest difference there. And Bo Ryan too. And one other thing, it's come full circle is he's been around for 12 years. If you're a high school kid, if you're a middle school kid in the state of Wisconsin, you know what Wisconsin does. You know this. You see what's there, and that definitely plays negatively against it. But Barry's not going to say, hey, Bo, you haven't made enough Final Fours, we're getting rid of you. The basketball program's thriving, and let's be honest, maybe we're just spoiled in Wisconsin. We shouldn't expect more than Sweet 16s. I mean, that's honestly what it is.
I agree with you, and I don't want to get too down this road where you the grass is always greener, because I'm not in support. I actually really enjoy watching different styles of basketball. I know the Big Ten and the Badgers in particular get ripped a lot for a plotting style of play. Look, if they had a little better of guys who could shoot and score, it wouldn't be so apparent. And Bo played a little faster, even with the swing at Platteville. We all know that for people around the state. But I just you take a look at some of these recruits, and I go back to, and I don't agree with this, but it seems like it's what you have to do. You pretty much have to guarantee these freshmen that they're going to be on the floor. And I don't think Bo's ever going to do that. He's old school, but I agree with the sentiment and the philosophy, but it's unfortunately in today's world, you got to guarantee these kids playing time and the fact that they're going to experience, floor time. And then what works against you? Well, maybe the slower down style of play, but that shouldn't be the biggest factor, because you can, coach up a guy defensively and have him learn a lot in 1 year at Wisconsin or a couple of years at Wisconsin and be even more ready for the NBA. Devin Harris would probably tell you that's, what happened with him. Of course, he wasn't necessarily a blue chip recruit at the time. So,
yeah, he had Harris had the injury, so not a lot of people were in on him, and really exploded in his senior year. I mean, that was kind of the the hit that Bo has had. But Brian Butch, he was a solid player. He was a McDonald's All-American, but he was a Wisconsin guy. That's kind of where it is. Branching out and going outside of the state lines, it's tough to do when you have the national image that you have at Wisconsin that gets pinned to Bo Ryan that they have. We have Dan Patrick on our station, and they spent the entire second week of the tournament making fun of Wisconsin and how Wisconsin plays. So that does not help things out if you're Bo Ryan and the Badgers trying to get the top-level talent.
Well, you can just imagine what's happening on the recruiting trail, if Dan Patrick is doing it on the National Airways. We'll see what happens next year. But I would look for another strong Big Ten season. And I am excited. Like you mentioned, you got the chance to watch Bronson Koenig. I'm very excited about the recruits that Bucky has coming in. It's just the question of, can that catapult you to make even one run? You feel like, Bo's been there forever. They've made the tournament every year. They made the Sweet 16 multiple times, the Elite Eight once. You'd think maybe 1 year they could catch lightning in a bottle, especially if they, make shots and actually make a run at the Final Four, because I think that would be at least some justification. Obviously there'd be a lot of people would still call it a fluke even in that 1 year, but it seems like this particular class coming through, when Decker and Koenig become upperclassmen, might be their shot. Just their one shot to actually go and make a run at the Final Four, even if they're not as up-tempo as the game we saw last night.
You know, and I think big men, how are they going to pan out? You know, you got Nigel Hayes. Vito Brown chose Wisconsin over Ohio State. He's out of Bowling Green, Ohio. That's kind of a big thing there. I think that might be the biggest telling thing with the class. But how will these guys develop? What's going to happen around in the Big Ten? I mean, all that stuff plays in. But I agree with you. I think, you know, not to look ahead because you never want to look ahead, but I think 2014-15 season is the one that I'm really curious to see what happens. But they might have to develop big men. You got Evan Anderson on the bench that isn't seeing a lick of time. You go into next year, you got Frank Kaminsky, you know, with Bergeron graduating this year. Hayes and Brown, they're 6'7", 6'8". You don't have that big man. So, I mean, that might be the one area where Wisconsin falters in, you know, down the road. But like you, I'm excited to see how these guys play out. And Bo Ryan, if you watch this, please play Bronson Koenig. I think people want to see what he can do. He has an athleticism you haven't seen since Devin Harris and might bring a little bit more excitement to your basketball program and might get some of these naysayers of Wisconsin basketball off your back. So please play Koenig.
I know you think, Bo, you know more about basketball than we do.
I know,
just
maybe.
The kid make some mistakes. No, I mean, that's the thing. You know, it's just a philosophy.
Yeah.
Let the kid make some mistakes. He's going to make some, but, man, I can't wait to see him and Decker on the floor together. And that doesn't mean you can't have Gosser and Ben Brust out there. They can play a little small. They're probably going to have to put their best team on the floor. You know,
they will.
Evan Anderson's just not panning out, man.
No.
I don't know.
He's got J.P. Gavinsky's number on speed dial. You know, they text
does.
back and forth to see how to handle things. So,
what's the best way to sit the bench? These are the things they text each other. Justin, thanks. We're the Talking Cheeseheads, and we're going to talk a little bit more here. We're going to talk about the Brewers. Oh, there's another fun topic. We'll talk about the Brewers next.